Image again. And with my next topic in a series of conversations that I promised I'd be having with the public, the voting public. A couple of housekeeping issues right off the top. I am a candidate for clerk of circuit court in the city of Richmond. Thought I'd get that out there. I do create and authorize, therefore authorize, each of these publications like this. This particular morning, this particular conversation I want to have with you is about the print media, the newspaper. God is good to me. Keeps me strong, keeps me walking the path. Opens doors that would otherwise be closed for me. Gives me insight which would otherwise not be accessible to me. So I'm eternally grateful. And I know that I'm blessed. And I've lived my entire life trying to give that blessing back to my community. I come by it honestly because actually my life, as well as the life of my wife and of my children, all of us are Richmond natives, all of us born and reared here in Richmond, Virginia, and educated by Richmond's public school systems. So we are fortunate. As for myself, I'm eternally grateful because I'm an extension of a family of Richmonders who had their start here since before 1860. And so what I'm doing here is really just one in a series of continued efforts by my family members in terms of being community starters and professionals and giving back to the community. And not just here. At the turn of the 20th century, my family members also sent missionaries to Liberia. So my family has consistently worked to provide African Americans with a continuing and a continuously building source of pride, self-respect, self-sufficiency, and dignity, like all other human beings. And so what I do in my candidacy, I can't really take all the credit for it because it's the work of God and it's the work of those who came before me. It's only a privilege for me to continue to step forward and do what I must do. One of the things that I've noticed about Richmond is that it's been preyed upon by carpetbaggers. Let me clarify something about a carpetbagger. First of all, a carpetbagger, despite what the name, the derogatory sounding nature of the name, it is what it is. Carpetbagger isn't simply just a person from someplace else. It's a two-pronged test primarily. A carpetbagger is also a person whose policies are despised or disliked. So you got a two-pronged test. From someplace else, policies despised. Another one of the types of carpetbaggers that we have been preyed upon by here comes to lie within our print media. Those who operate the newspapers here. Those who simply show up here and because of wealth, connections, affluence, or influence are able to roll off a barrel of ink and hang a roll of newsprint and start basically printing their own perceptions and perspectives about what this area is and shaping what your views should be about everything from whether City Stadium should remain City Stadium, whether we should have any place to have an outdoor common meeting place for athletic events and concerts, from that to whether an entire community is raised. All of these thoughts and concepts are shaped by our print media. To my knowledge, we don't have one newspaper whose owner and or editor is a Richmond native. So what does that mean? If the person is not from Richmond, the only thing they could have done when they came to Richmond was to accept the views of somebody else, which in turn shaped what they believed in, and which in turn resulted in what they put out in the print media. And so if you don't know anything about here, you don't know what the people in the communities have been going through here, then you're going to reflect the views of the rich and the wealthy. From the very beginning, We know that the Richmond Times-Dispatch has always stood for the wealthy. The Richmond Times-Dispatch has a pro-slavery stance, and they're printing with a slant, which obviously means something to me because as a 12-year-old, I took the Times-Dispatch. It was actually my very first formal job. But let's look at what some of these print media do. I've had people contact me, and they told me, well, the Free Press had an article in there, and they indicate that you wouldn't respond to them. They tried to contact you, and you wouldn't respond to them. Well, I live a full life. If I'm not accessible to the phone immediately, does that really constitute contacting me and finding out what I think? No, I don't think that it does. But it doesn't stop them from putting that in the newspaper and making you think that maybe I'm evading them or anybody else. And I got a call from the Richmond Times-Dispatch. I called them back. Haven't heard anything back. But, you know, this doesn't surprise me. One of the things that I want to do and make sure that I do is to come straight to you. So when I started out, I don't suspect that any of them are going to endorse me because I take them all to task. You see, when you're standing up for truth and dignity for everybody, and you're not separating supposed low class and poor and the middle class from the wealthy, people are just people. Well, then those who take a separate view and think that because of their connectivity and their attachment to the affluent should carry all things, well, they're going to part company with you. But let's look at the strategy here. Right now, one of the hot topics that we're dealing with is how Sheriff Woody has employed family members. Now, you know, when I ran for sheriff opposing Woody, one of the things that I said was, you know, you can hire him, you can give him the job, but there's certain things that you can't compensate for. If an individual does not have policy experience, if an individual has never operated in office and had staff report to him and been responsible for various sites and what have you, there's just certain things they can't know. I told them this. I told the Times-Dispatch, and I told anybody else who would listen. Do you think they listened? No, they didn't. In the end, Times-Dispatch, as well as other newspapers, endorsed Woody. You get what you get. You know, but now, after having endorsed him, what they want to do now is hold him out and roast him about hiring family members. Now, I totally agree that there's a point of excessiveness that you can get to. I haven't quite reached the point where I don't think any family member shouldn't be hired. I have professional family members who could bring a very specific and needed skill set to that environment. So no, I'm not about to say that you shouldn't be hiring any family members. Family members need to work too. They still owe $200,000 to Sally Mae and Freddie Mae and Willie Mack and all of those people too for their educations. But there is a point at which there must be a cutoff. But you got to keep in mind that this is a constitutional office. That's not controlled locally. If this is going to change as a procedural matter, it has to be changed at the state level. The Virginia State Legislature has got to look at it. The fact that they haven't looked at it, to me, is laggard. It should have been something that should have been addressed a long time ago. But that's a part of what is systemically wrong with this whole picture. You can't Obamaize Woody. You can't just jump out there and start getting precise with Sheriff C.T. Woody for a practice that's been in place. Now, we all know that prior people at the jail hired family members as well. Now, though I am not aware of any special skill set they may have brought, what I say to you is that the practice was in place long before C.T. Woody went down there. Does that excuse any and everything that he would do? No, it doesn't. But the truth here is that when you endorse a person that you know does not have this experience and you select him, then you need to stay with him. Don't abandon the ship like some rat or something. Don't jump up there and start talking about him. But that's an option that the print media has. What I say to you right now, it's not that I haven't said it. I commented on the Times-Dispatch. You know, tell me what the the overarching practice has been for all of, not just the sheriff's office. Tell me about this practice as it relates to the other local offices. How about the treasurer's office? How about the clerk of the court? You know, it may or may not be occurring, but in order for the public to be well informed, the print media has to do a better job of fully informing. And what that means is that they have to go out and actually find out, well, what are the other governing facts here? Are we requiring C.T. Woodard to do something that Andrew Winston did not have to do? Now, the state legislature was aware of what Andrew Winston did. Right, wrong, or indifferent. They chose not to act on it. They chose not to create any laws. Where was the Time Dispatch then? Where was the Free Press then? Where was Voice, Style, Weekly? Where were any of these papers then? And I haven't read any of them. But if they have printed something, then I would suggest to them that before they actually put that out there and they start taking issue with Sheriff Woody, before they do that, I would suggest that they find out what are the practices. Because as we've seen, when an African American gets into office, the threshold is raised so high that they can't even get over it. Everything is called into question. Whereas when a European American held the office, nothing was questioned. They were able to do anything and everything. But again, that's one of the problems that you have when the print media is free to shape opinions and perspectives as they choose. They don't have any connection to this area. They're not even from here. When you look at the current status right now, not only are the vast majority of our print media not native Richmonders, not born of Richmond, and have no connectivity to Richmond itself or the communities and or past practices that made Richmond what it is, the vast majority of our administrative and municipal governmental officers, the mayor, not from Richmond, the chief financial officer, not from Richmond, police chief, not from Richmond. The list goes on and on and on and on. Am I saying to you that nobody who's not from Richmond doesn't have anything positive to provide and to give? No, I'm not saying that in the least bit. But if you look at the overarching and underlying consistent theme of all of this, none of these people have any connection to Richmond. So what do they care about people who do have a connection with Richmond? I've consistently said that my family has been here since 1860. For a person who's not from Richmond, they could care less about that. And this continues to show. And as long as you continue to put people in office who have no connection with Richmond, don't come back later on and try to act surprised because they don't get it. They don't get it because they never had it. And simply by endorsing them, you don't give it to them. You don't give them the insight that you can only get from pounding these streets and working in these communities. So, no, don't look forward to any kind of interview or honest assessment of Emmett J. E.J. Jafari in any of the print media. So I wanted to share this with you. Just because you read in the newspaper that some newspaper tried to contact me and I was unavailable, I just want you to know that often my lack of availability is more of a convenience for them. Thanks, and this has been another in a series of conversations with Emmett J. Take care. Godspeed.